Mairi McAllan, your SNP candidate for the Clydesdale constituency. And today I want to talk to you about an issue which is close to my heart and which I know is a top priority for many people in the coming election. That issue is the climate and ecological emergency. The world around us is changing rapidly. The effects of a changing climate are clear for all to see. Over the last 12 months, when the world has been battling a pandemic unlike anything in living memory, we've seen how we can come together, making radical changes in our lives for the common good. That same spirit of working together can help us now as we begin to look to the recovery from COVID and to what kind of recovery we want it to be. In government, the SNP has already made sure that Scotland is at the very forefront of global efforts to tackle climate change. Scotland's emissions have halved since 1990, and as the Committee on Climate Change noted last year, the Scottish economy has decarbonised more quickly than the rest of the UK and faster than any G20 economy since 2008. Our updated climate change plan, published in December, contains over 100 new ways to tackle the climate crisis. And importantly, we're making sure that no one is left behind with a legal commitment to a just transition. We've invested enormously in Scotland's renewable energy potential, and last year more than 97% of our electricity needs were met by renewable sources. But we and the world need to go much further, much faster. Nicola Sturgeon was one of the first government leaders to declare a climate emergency. And we've set ourselves the world-leading ambition of becoming a net zero nation by 2045. That's 5 years ahead of the UK. So one of the key issues in this election is about how we deliver on those ambitions. If we don't act, my generation will have to live with the consequences. In just 6 months, the eyes of the world will be upon Scotland as Glasgow hosts the COP26 summit. This is an opportunity for us to secure real and lasting change, and an SNP government led by Nicola Sturgeon will use our role and voice to push for the ambitious international agreement that the world needs. But we must also lead by example in showing how targets can be met. And we're already setting in train the policies which are helping to deliver that. We haven't waited for the pandemic to end to start work on a sustainable recovery. We are already doing it. To provide jobs and training opportunities as we emerge from the pandemic, the National Transition Training Fund will support workers whose jobs are at risk and provide retraining opportunities for high-tech, high-skilled jobs that support Scotland's net zero transition. And over the next 5 years, we will invest £100 million in our Green Jobs Fund, investing alongside business organisations to support new and increased opportunities for green job creation across Scotland. In doing so, we are determined to learn the lessons from the past. Communities across Scotland were left scarred by the move away from coal and steel during the deindustrialisation of the 80s and 90s. We can't let that happen again. That's why a just transition isn't just an aspiration. It will be absolutely central to everything we do, and we will appoint a dedicated Minister of Just Transition to drive this agenda forward. Making these changes takes political will. It requires politicians to be open and honest with people about what is needed. It requires leadership, and that's what the SNP offer at this election. In 10 years' time, we will all heat our homes differently. And while that seems like a big challenge now, these are changes we will make that will become easier, cheaper, and part of our daily lives. We will invest £1.6 billion over the next Parliament to decarbonise our homes and buildings. We'll introduce a new housing standard set in law, which, among other things, will set a minimum level for energy efficiency and heating standards in all homes. In 10 years' time, we'll all travel differently as well. But we aren't waiting. These changes are already underway. One very visible change over the last 12 months is the increase in people walking and cycling. We've taken advantage of the quieter roads to try new ways of getting about. More active travel, it's a win-win. It can improve our physical and mental health, and it makes a key contribution to our climate targets. So we want to encourage people to stick with these changes. If we are re-elected, we'll commit to investing 10% of the transport capital budget on walking and wheeling by the end of the Parliament. And to encourage more people to get on their bikes, we'll provide free bikes to every school child who couldn't otherwise afford one. And for everyone else, we'll make sure that they have access to loans or grants so that they can buy and maintain their own bike. We will also invest significantly in public transport. That will include £500 million to improve bus infrastructure and tackle congestion, and £120 million in zero emissions buses, ensuring that the vast majority of buses are zero emission. We'll also make it easier for young people to use buses by giving free bus travel to everyone under 22. We'll also work to decarbonise our railways by 2035, so Scotland won't only have a publicly owned railway under the SNP, it will also have a greener railway. And to show how serious we are about delivering all of this, we will set a target to reduce car use by 20% by the end of this decade. Another way of achieving these objectives is to make it easier for people to access the services they need closer to where they live. If re-elected, the SNP will take forward our ambitions for 20-minute neighbourhoods, the creation of livable, accessible places with thriving local economies where people can meet their daily needs within a 20-minute walk. And we'll do more to tackle waste and build a truly circular economy. Scotland was one of the first countries in the UK to ban the sale of plastic cotton buds, and we have introduced a successful plastic bag tax. In the next Parliament, we will take action against other harmful plastics like disposable cutlery, and we'll introduce a deposit return scheme for single-use drinks containers. In all of these ways, we are tackling plastic pollution on our land and seas. But as well as changing how we live, tackling the climate emergency requires us to take full advantage of Scotland's natural resources. I've already mentioned how almost all of Scotland's electricity needs were met by renewables. But we need to go further. By 2030, we aim to generate 50% of Scotland's overall energy consumption from renewable sources. And by 2050, we aim to have decarbonised our energy system almost completely. This will require developing new technologies as well as investing in existing resources. Hydrogen is an area of huge potential for Scotland, and we're already working on how to make the most of it, both as a source of energy and as an opportunity to create new green jobs. We're going to set a target to have renewable and low carbon production of hydrogen capacity of at least 5 gigawatts by 2030. That's the same level of ambition as Germany, a much larger country with a bigger industrial base. And we'll explore the use of hydrogen trains as an alternative to electric and diesel. Another key resource which Scotland has is our land. Scotland is delivering more than 80% of all new tree planting in the UK. We've increased our targets by 50% from 12,000 hectares up to 18,000 hectares by 2025. And by the end of this decade, we'll have invested £250 million to support the restoration of 250,000 hectares of Scotland's peatland. And we will also invest £500 million to address biodiversity loss, helping to protect at least 30% of our land by 2030. Making better use of our land and ensuring it is properly cared for is of course what has driven the SNP's land reform agenda. We have worked alongside communities the length and breadth of Scotland for decades to argue for and then to support community ownership. Our community funding has backed buyouts of land and assets across the country, from the Highlands and Islands to here in South Lanarkshire. In 2016, the SNP set up the Scottish Land Commission to advise us on the next steps of Scotland's land reform journey. We want to see land owned and used in ways which are fair, responsible and productive. So we will act on their recommendations and introduce a new Land Reform Act. We will also double the funding available for community buyouts from £10 million to £20 million by the end of the Parliament. These steps, tackling the climate crisis, transitioning to sustainable living, creating new industries to help us reach net zero, and protecting our land and environment are all central to our recovery from the pandemic and to our future as a nation. As we rebuild, and we do so in a sustainable way, we could do so much more. Scotland may be a relatively small country, but we have human and natural resources that most could only dream of. And when we put our minds to it, we can make a big difference on the world stage. The spirit of industrial and scientific innovation that defines so much of Scotland's past must also drive our future. It is right that Scotland, which played a major part in the Industrial Revolution, is where the world will gather to commit to a green revolution. I'm working hard to become Clydesdale's MSP on May 6th, and if elected, I will work every day thereafter to make Scotland a better place to live and to ensure we become a net zero nation. To secure that future, the experienced leadership of Nicola Sturgeon, a clear vision for sustainable recovery, and a commitment to put Scotland's future into Scotland's hands, vote SNP on May 6th.